Am I still stuck at the cottage? Yes. Am I still stuck on a certain part of the fandom that seems hell-bent on pushing this narrative that Shane Hollander isn't as romantic or emotional or open or committed to their relationship as Ilya Rosanov is? Yes, I am. Do I want to talk about it? Most certainly. Because I think a lot of time with our understanding of how events play out within the story, especially for those who might have read the second Holland book, The Long Game. Also, quick plug in here. All Enough Nation. Did you see Rachel's announcement? There's going to be a third All Enough book. Unrivaled is dropping in September. Montreal Voyagers, you are going down. I'm sorry. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I was saying I think a lot of time with our understanding of how events played out within the story, especially for those of us who might have read the second Holland book, The Long Game, and so have quite the opinion on Shane Hollander, who I am willing to die on the hill of. Shane loves Ilya as much as Ilya loves Shane because the way in which he shows it looks a bit different from Ilya, but that doesn't mean that he isn't as committed or in it. In order to defend him means therefore that I think it is important that I make this video. If anything, so that as we wait for season 2 and you are maybe reading the books for the first time or doing a reread or just counting down the days when the second season comes along and you are tempted to for a moment have the thought of, oh, Ilya wants this more than Shane, your mind will flash back to this video and you remember that no, Noria explained this. Shane is as much as invested in this as Ilya is, and whilst the tuna melt scene was Ilya's way of trying to show Shane that he was in it, the cottage is Shane showing Ilya not just how to express the desire to be fully committed in their relationship, but to go all the way through with it to its successful result that didn't end with either of them checking out and running away. Because you see, to fully appreciate what went down with the cottage, we also have to talk about why the tuna melt scene, even as heartfelt as it was, didn't have everything it needed to actually work out for the both of them. Now, I have no plans to go in depth with a play-by-play analysis of the subtleties in the tuna melt scene. I already have a video where I explained in full what all of those actions meant and how it landed with Ilya and Shane and the heartbreak that followed. If you haven't seen that video or you want to do a rewatch of it, I will leave it linked in the description bar so you can check it out after you're done watching this one. What I instead want to do is explain the events of the cottage from the perspective of it being the second part of what was initially established at the tuna melt scene to show how thematically both situations, both scenes work and are equally needed in order to get Shane and Ilya the happy ending that we got within the story. But before I go into that, a quick thank you to my lovely Patreons and YouTube members whose support have been instrumental in helping me continue to make content, especially since I started doing this full time at the start of last year, which was the last time I was in paid employment. And a special shout out to Lena and Holly for their extra support. You get all the hearts and kisses too. Mwah. If you too would like to support me on Patreon or become a YouTube member to enjoy certain perks, even get a shout out, the link to do so is in the description bar. And with that said, like I have mentioned in my tuna melt video prior to how events played out in that scene, Shane and Ilya's relationship had evolved around them texting each other, showing up at their different homes, apartments, or hotel rooms whenever they happen to be in the same city and having hot, amazing sex, after which they went their separate ways until the next time their team played against each other and they were once again in each other's orbit. Their relationship, if we can even call it a relationship at that point, didn't allow space for them spending the night together or even spending a significant amount of time chatting on the couch. There was no room or space for them to be emotionally vulnerable with each other. And they seemed to be okay with that arrangement until Ilya wanted more and then did a ton of elaborate planning to get the chance to feed Shane some tuna melt while stocking his home with a ginger ale that he knows Shane prefers, as a subtle way of indicating that his home is a space where Shane can be himself and get what he needs without having to ask for it or be mocked for said preferences, as is Shane's usual experience outside of being in Ilya's home. And after that bit of frothing, that at the end of it had Ilya murmuring Shane's name as he came, and Shane did the same, then realized that emotions were getting involved in their arrangement and he was feeling way too flustered and out of sorts with the turn that their relationship was taking, and as such, Shane bails. Now, here is often the point where you will see some fans berate Shane for his actions in that scene and what followed afterwards, because Ilya was at that point in time trying to be subtly open about the change in his feelings for Shane, and Shane in that moment and afterwards hurt him. And you know what? I get it. Like I've said in my videos, Ilya Rozanov is my favorite character in the series. My second favorite character is Troy Barrett, who we haven't met in the show yet, but my third favorite character is Shane Hollander. And God, I love him so goddamn much, because unlike Ilya, who is very expressive with what he feels and who he is, Shane is so much more contained, and a lot of people tend to read that containment as him not feeling as much or being, like I always say in this video, as into their relationship as Ilya is, which I personally believe is them not understanding the character as much or attempting to extend Shane the grace that he so sorely needs, which to me is sad when the readers do not get that. But sorry, this video is not me attempting to do a deep dive into the character of Shane. That would be for another video, hopefully when season 2 is out, because then I can go as in-depth as I want to without having to worry about spoiling the events of the books for those who haven't read them yet or who are only show onlys. Anyway, back to my point. Shane Bales gets into a brief relationship with Rose Landry, which I also have a video on the dual role that Rose plays within the story, if you haven't seen that yet, and afterwards finds his way back to Ilya after he's come to terms with his own identity and is ready/willing to move forward with things. Like I said earlier, all of this is important for us to get to the cottage, because for me, the cottage is Shane's response, is answer to Ilya's tuna melt, and for that to fully click, we will need to take things step by step. Firstly, for Ilya and Shane's relationship to have a chance at surviving, the one thing that they needed to give each other was time. Remember, like I stated at the start of this video, their relationship has been mostly contained to the brief pockets and moments of time that they've been able to find and carve out amidst the busy schedule of them playing competitively as rivals while trying to maintain their secret and not giving it away to anyone else that they are even remotely in a situationship. Ilya, as we know, as after they've been doing this for years at this point, and is just like Shane, has found his emotions getting in the way of what initially started as a physical thing for both of them, makes the decision to try and aim for more, but he goes for it with subtlety because he doesn't want to spook Shane or outrightly be as immediately open to what he wants, because like I keep saying, their rivalry isn't just limited to their time on the ice, it also factors into their relationship at that point, as neither of them wants to be the first to let it come through that they like the other a bit too much. He who shows that he wants it more loses, after all. So you have Ilya, who clearly wants more and wants to create a space where he and Shane can naturally arrive at that, but he chooses to make that happen within the tight constraints of the limited time that they have together, a day, an evening where he finds a way to convince Shane to stay for the night for the first time ever in their situationship. After which he then offers him a drink, cooks him food, which Shane accepts even though it's against his macrobiotic diet, and I explain why this is such a big deal for Shane in the Tuna Melt video. And then they have the moment watching the game and just relaxing. It's a good plan really when you think about it. The only problem is that at that point, Ilya wanted things to change, but one, he never communicated it outrightly that that was what he wants or hopes to accomplish, because Ilya Rozanov tends to keep things to himself, hold them closely to his chest for various reasons. For those who've read the books, you are very much aware that that is Ilya's flaw within the story. But it is not just the not communicating, it is also the fact that needing for their situationship to change, to evolve, to become something different, to turn into a real relationship, like we know is what Ilya wanted at that point, even though he was not able to voice it, is not something that he could just arrive at or accomplish in a day or with a couple of hours of conversation. A conversation that, I repeat, he wasn't even having at that point. To change things, it will take actual time, sitting down, discussing, and being vulnerable to each other. They need a summer break, not a one-night conversation, which is why the cottage and Shane asking Ilya over to join him at the cottage was important. Like Shane tells Ilya, when he's doped out of his mind due to his injuries, they get to spend time together alone. It's going to be fun. It's going to be freeing. It's going to be the cottage, which also makes sense when you consider that after Ilya arrives and they are together on the couch, Shane has to put it out there, having both of them promise to be absolutely honest with each other, bearing their hearts out to the other whilst they are in the cottage. The cottage becomes their free your emotions, be honest with yourself zone. It's a great way to set the foundation for what their relationship is, and a subtle way that the narrative sets out to show us that for these two to communicate, it takes a conscientious effort because, and say it with me now, Ilya Rozanov, whilst charming and amazing, does not immediately think to share his deepest emotions and thoughts. He often does it within the story via the urging and encouragement of Shane. This is important to keep in mind going into season 2 or book 2, whichever you end up getting around to first. But still, looking at how the cottage is basically Shane's response to the tuna melt scene, there are other things that point to that as well. The fact that, like Ilya had done before, this time around, it is Shane's turn to go grocery shopping. And just like Ilya had cooked for him, it is now Shane's turn to do the cooking, although his autistic ass didn't know to cut the ingredients by half so they don't have to eat 8 whole ass burgers at once. I love that man so much. Also, I'm guilty of this, so I don't know what to say. I've done this before. I keep doing this. I'm sorry. And then there's the bit with the emotional vulnerability about family. In the tuna melt scene, after Gregory calls Ilya and Ilya in turn calls Alexei to ask his brother why he isn't with their father, whose dementia was deteriorating at quite the alarming rate, Ilya returns back to the living room to take his seat beside Shane, who then asks about his dad because he knows that Papa means father in Russian. Ilya in that scene is overjoyed at Shane's care, but he doesn't provide any further information, i.e., even though at this point in the narrative he is desirous of drawing closer to Shane and wants more from their relationship, they haven't reached the point where he feels okay with telling him about what is going on with his family. He holds that pain and grief inside and instead bestows Shane with a smile. At the cottage, however, it's a bit different. Maintaining their vow to be honest about how they feel means that they've been able to create their own personal safe space and cocoon where they're allowed to be as vulnerable as they want. And so, even without Shane asking for further clarity, Ilya offers the truth, the entire truth about his mother's mental illness and her struggles and how she ultimately took her own life and how he was the 12-year-old child who found her afterwards. It is heartbreaking in the sense that no child should ever have to go through that. And then it hits you even harder when you realize that this is most likely the first time in Ilya's life where he has allowed himself and been given the space to be that open and truthful about what happened and what he felt in that moment with someone else. And then you take it a step further and it hits you like a truck that Ilya Rozanov has come so far from the man he was in the tuna melt scene where he avoided talking about his alien father with a smile and a kiss. I think it's a great juxtaposition to see how in that scene, after his father was mentioned and he was happy and grateful for Shane's presence in his life at that point, he doesn't respond or provide further details or clarity and instead drops a kiss on Shane's head and pulls him closer to him to avoid talking about it. Compare that to when he allows himself to be vulnerable and speaks about his mother. This time around, the person who has pulled Ilya close, who is holding him as he lets himself be vulnerable in that moment, is Shane. It's such a brilliant bit of visual storytelling that just hits me, and it's so subtle that if you blink you'll miss how these two scenes mirror each other. And then there's the bit with the confession after Ilya mentioned possibly marrying Svetlana to gain citizenship, and Shane asks him not to, and then spends the entire night brainstorming on how they can change the narrative about their rivalry, whilst also having Ilya come closer by transferring to Ottawa. Shane really was his mother's son in that scene. Shout out to the commenters in my commodification of Shane Hollander video who pointed that out. When Shane expresses his desire to still be with Ilya even after they are retired because he wants it all with him and is in the long haul with him, Ilya kisses him, expresses his love for him, first in Russian and then in English. It's meant to be a great parallel to the tuna melt scene where even though Ilya didn't say the L word in that moment, he and Shane knew that something had shifted and changed, and emotions were now involved in the arrangement, and Shane, upon catching sight of that, bails. This time around at the cottage, Shane finally gets to respond the way he should have the first time. There's the initial shock that Ilya actually came out and said it, but then just as Ilya tries to backtrack, because in that moment we can tell that he's thinking of what happened the last time he had let out a bit of his feelings for Shane's slip and Shane had spooked and ran away. Shane stops him this time around by expressing his love for Ilya too, and that, everybody watching, is what we like to call a full circle moment, and what a brilliant one it is too. Like I've mentioned before, Ilya is an expressive character. Sometimes he keeps things hidden that would have been better said, but more times than not, he's pretty expressive. Shane, on the other hand, is the planner in their relationship. Just because he doesn't immediately put it out there like Ilya does, doesn't mean that he doesn't care as much, or that he isn't as invested, or that he doesn't want it the same way Ilya does. Because narratively, we can see that he does, and that when Shane Hollander makes the conscious effort to put in the work and really strategize things out, it often pays out for him and for the man he loves. And this is quite evident with the cottage, which I will like to repeat again. I do firmly consider a parallel to the tuna melt scene, whereby we get to see that when things are all aligned and rules are set in place for these two men to be open in a judgment-free zone, then something beautiful and miraculous is born. Quick side note, but I also found it funny that in both instances, Aiden finds a way to make his presence known. With the tuna melt scene, it was Shane initially pointing out that Aiden would be expecting him, to which Ilya responds with the iconic, "Is Aiden your mother? Who cares what Aiden thinks?" And then Ilya proves that he really doesn't care what Aiden thinks by blowing his boyfriend whilst Aiden is on the longest call with Shane and has zero idea why his best friend keeps putting him on hold to chat with his mother and pick up an Amazon delivery. And I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but that little gremlin voice at the back of my head noticed the parallels and cannot stop cackling. But of course, these are just my thoughts. I would, as always, love to hear yours. Whether or not you agree with me, please share them in the comments. Like this video, however, if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet, but enjoyed anything of what I had to say, share it so others can find my channel as well. Or you can check out my gaming or ASMR channels if they sound like something you might be interested in. I have them both linked in the description bar. I will see you tomorrow with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.